Good morning to you.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of people were thinking, oh, he's attacking this woman. At the same time, what I believe, and you just tell me what you think, he's trying to point out a bias within this case, the AG, the judge, and now this woman being friends with a very famous Democrat to point to the fact that this is a sham. What do you think? Is that appropriate?
As usual, he is overstating based on the evidence that we have. All we have is a photograph. Any of us, all of us have been photographed with people who come up to you and photograph. If they are in fact friends, that's a relevant fact to his claim that this is a bunch of Democrats, all of whom are trying to get Trump, title of my book, based on what Letitia James ran on. So if he had just said, there seems to be some kind of a connection between Senator Schumer and his and the law clerk that ought to be looked into, that would be a problem. But the judge has also overreacted. Judges don't have plenary authority just to shut up defendants. There's no influence on the trial. The judge is supposed to be able to administer justice without bias, although he's given some interviews that suggest maybe he has a strong bias. So I think both sides could have done better. Trump could have just shown the picture and indicated that there ought to be investigation, and the judge should have really not done anything.
A lot of people think that President Trump is often habitually overreaching, overdoing it, over-talking. But as you alluded to with this judge, he is not just overreactive, or there could be claims that he was overreactive. He could be undervaluing properties that he says that the former president, or rather undervaluing properties that he says the former president overvalued.
I have no doubt about that. The idea that he would even mention Mar-a-Lago's worth at around $18 to $27 million when it's worth probably 20 times that amount shows that he shouldn't have been the one making those decisions. It should be up to a jury after it hears expert testimony on all sides, particularly from real estate dealers who know the market down in Florida. I've joked I'd be happy to buy Mar-a-Lago for $27 million. I could sell it tomorrow for 10 or 20 times its value. And so this judge does not seem to be weighing the facts carefully on both sides. And the judge has stated publicly that he can manipulate the law, that he has tools to make the law come out the way he wants it to come out. He gave that interview some time ago that really does show his approach to cases like this. He said, well, I might distinguish a case if one person wore a red sweater and the other person wore a blue sweater. Well, you're not supposed to base cases on what people wear or what their names are or what parties they belong to. And I don't think the American public can have confidence that this judge, who will decide the case without a jury, will do fair justice without regard to the name or the party of the defendant.
Well, but what happens, because clearly you have decades of legal advice, what would President Trump need to do to get this case thrown out, as he said time and time again he wants to have happen, and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think he's going to lose at the trial. That's why probably he won't take the witness stand, because why take the witness stand in a losing cause when you then open yourselves up to a perjury prosecution? And then the case will go up to appeal, but the appeals won't be decided until after the election. And that's the tactic of the Get Trump posse. Try to get verdicts quickly that hurt him in the general election. They're helping him in the primaries, but that will hurt him in the general election. And then we don't care if they're reversed on appeal after the election is over, because by that time it will have no impact on the election. Look, I'm not in this case or concerned about this case because of Trump's electability. I'm a liberal Democrat. I plan to vote against him. But I want the American public to be able to decide this case fair and square. And if he loses, I don't want him to have any excuse that he lost because the thumb of the Democratic Party has been put on the scale of elections improperly. So I hope that the judge will do the right thing, but I have no confidence that he will.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.